Welcome back to Big Riff Energy. It's Tuesday, August 20th. This is episode 80. Hard to believe. And thanks for bearing with me, everybody that's written in. I have a pretty huge backlog right now. Don't worry, I'm not ignoring you. Some of you I'm going to respond to directly. Some of you I'm going to try to address everything that's backed up today. I don't know that I can do that. But if you haven't gotten a response, don't worry. I'm getting to it. Yeah, got a lot of stuff to catch up with. You can always write me, bigriffenergy@gmail.com. Give me more stuff to catch up with. But here's a couple loose ends that people have been asking about. I mentioned in an episode about Mel Gibson being the nicest person I met the entire time I lived in California. And I forgot to sort of finish some like lingering questions relating to that situation. Somebody was asking, why was Mel Gibson covered in yellow paint? If you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to the episode. I think it's called The Nicest Man in Malibu or something like that. Yeah, he was covered in yellow paint. It was him and either a buddy or maybe, I don't know, could have been his sponsor or personal assistant or something. They were both covered in yellow paint, like head to toe. And it turns out they were doing a remodel on his house in Malibu. I'm not going to recap the whole situation. Go back and listen to that episode if you wonder what the hell I'm talking about. But something I forgot to sort of mention as a cool full circle thing, that was 2011 when that situation occurred. And in December of 2019, Spirit Adrift and Gatecreeper got booked to play a fest in LA, Decibel Metal and Beer Fest, I think. And it was a rare occasion that my wife could go with me on one of these trips. This is when we were still living in Phoenix. And we went a day early so that I could take her around Santa Monica and the PCH and stuff, because I lived there for a little while. I just kind of wanted to show her where I lived and show her the movie theater where I met Carpenter and show her father's office, which was a great burger joint I've talked about. But I tried to see if I could remember how to get up to Mel Gibson's house. And so we went driving down the PCH that night, and I guess it was like muscle memory or something. It all kind of came back to me, but we went up the hill to Malibu, and I drove right to the spot where I was working, helping this dude build his studio. Just kind of showed her around. But I wanted to like check in on that situation. And so I looked, and Mel listed this house in 2019, March of 2019, for $14.5 million. I'll throw up some pictures of it here. But yeah, I get, so he was covered in yellow paint because I don't see any rooms with yellow paint anywhere, but well, kinda. Yeah, I don't know. They were remodeling his place, I guess. Another person was asking about the Dave Mustaine story. There's not really like a crazy story. I think I had sort of mentioned offhand in a previous episode that Mustaine is the only man I've ever been in the presence of who I felt intimidated by. And yeah, there's no crazy story. We were working with a manager at one point who had previously worked with Mustaine, and Mustaine had heard Spirit Adrift, I guess, and seemed to dig it, which is super cool. And a Megadeth tour came through Corpus. So my drummer Mikey and myself went to Corpus, and we're looking to meet up with Megadeth and say hi and everything. Dirk, the drummer of Megadeth, is not really that far removed from our world through his wife Hannah, and I think he's a fan of Spirit Adrift as well. But we were kind of waiting around, like wondering if it was going to happen. That particular day, Mustaine was dealing with some pretty tragic personal shit that I won't get into. But I was kind of like, if that happened to me, there's no fucking way I would be doing like a meet and greet with some strangers or whatever. But we were waiting around, and their tour manager came and got us and didn't really tell us what was going on, but just kind of led us down a hallway, took us through a black curtain, like opened the curtain we walked through, and were just standing in the middle of a Megadeth practice unexpectedly, and it was really awkward for us. I don't know if it was for them, but Dirk was at like an electronic kit, and the rest of the guys were kind of around in like a semicircle. They're all just staring at us. We were like, "Hey," I had brought some records and like a little care package, you know. And Dirk realized it was Spirit Adrift, and he kind of broke the ice. He got super excited and stuff. We shook everybody's hand. But yeah, it was just. I think it was a. I don't know if the situation was engineered as like an intentional vibe check or whatever, but it kind of felt that way. It was just a little. It was intimidating, yeah, and there was a little bit of a vibe check, and I guess we passed because uh, Uncle Dave made sure we got all access passes and stuff like that. But that's it, It was no big deal. I was just yeah, surprised to find myself intimidated by another man. It's a very rare thing. Other loose ends. Pull the Plug Patches has got some new shirts coming. They got a bunch of stuff for pre-order. You see I'm wearing the Rain and Blood long sleeve. I'm looking at the Judas Priest Painkiller tee and the Scream Bloody Gore tee. Lots of great stuff. These shirts are awesome, man. I know Pull the Plug is known for patches, but I'm a huge fan of their shirts and especially long sleeves. And I want to thank them for sponsoring the podcast. Go to pulltheplugpatches.com, pick something up, pre-order the Scream Bloody Gore shirt or the Painkiller shirt. I'm also going to shout out an album that's about to drop 3 days, August 23rd. So I've somehow made my way onto the mailing lists of publicists for labels and independent PR firms and stuff like that. So I've been getting like submissions. It's cool. If you're a publicist or you represent a band or anything like that, hit me up, bigriffergy@gmail.com. This sort of stuff is always welcome. I am backed up, but I'll get to it. If you think I'll like it, send it over. If you're worried that I'm going to hate it, send it over, because my method on here is if I don't like something, I try to avoid talking about it altogether. So the worst that'll happen is that I don't say anything about it at all. So win-win. But I got a submission from Season of Mist. The band is Grave Noir, French band. The album is something that I can't pronounce, but it's like Devant la Porte des Étoiles or some shit. But they recorded it in their practice space. If you're a fan of Under a Funeral Moon, Transylvanian Hunger, Plague Wielder, Early Mayhem, you get the idea. I'm not a huge black metal guy, but I appreciate it when it's done right. And these dudes recorded it in their practice space. The thing that stands out to me a lot are the vocals. They're just very tormented, very emotional, extreme metal vocals. I talk about it a lot. They can tend to be kind of monotonous and devoid of feeling and devoid of like the goosebump inducing human expression. But these vocals are really, really good. They're really extreme, but they're great. Album opens with kind of a militant sound, somewhere between like a, I don't know, military marching song and like a dungeon synth sort of ambient thing. The album ends with like a weird French spoken word thing, but in between is just raw, real, extreme, intense, painful, agonized, real ass black metal. I love the drum sound. It's just nasty. There's mistakes all over the place. I feel like Fenriz would approve of the drum sound, and that's the ultimate compliment. I'm not getting a kickback from this. I've been submitted a bunch of shit from Season of Mist lately, which I love, but this was the one that stood out to me the most. So check out Grave Noir. The album will be out soon. I'm going to get to fan questions. I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about on this episode. Usually we have a theme, but I got a couple of similar questions that will sort of be like the topic here, and then I'm just going to try to get through the rest of the fan mail. The actual album of discussion today is a great record that's come up a couple of times. The band is Replicant. It's called Infinite Mortality. Came out a while back on Transcending Obscurity, I believe. Uh, I hope I'm right about that label. Sorry if I'm not. But yeah, I'll talk about that after I try to dig through these questions. So, like I said, I got a couple of similar questions, emails here. Alex, hi Nate, how are you? I'm good. I'm fucking busy, obviously, but good. I've been watching your content these past few months, and you are one of the few metal YouTubers I'm really interested in listening to. The format of the podcast is great, and the albums and topics you talk about are great. Anyway, I wanted to write you this email to see if I could get some advice about my situation. Thank you. My name is Alex. I'm 16 years old. I live in Mexico. I love music and making it. However, I feel a bit lost. Create most of my music in Band Lab. I only use acoustic guitars because I don't have the budget to get something better. Although that has not been an impediment to be able to make some songs. I felt like I'm falling behind. I feel at this age I could have done better by now. I feel like sometimes the factor of my mental health is something that affects the way I look at this. My friends have told me I'm quite talented. However, I don't know how I could exploit this in the near future. My dream is to create music, but I'm afraid I'll starve to death if it doesn't take off. You can talk about this in the podcast if you find it interesting enough. Thanks a lot for listening. Yeah, believe it or not, I relate to that a lot, man. And I'm going to give you like a full blown answer to your question, but I'm going to read a second question from somebody in Ireland that's sort of similar. Dude, I don't know how many days I find myself sitting around thinking about the fact that James Hetfield was like 20 or something when they did Ride the Lightning. And yeah, that kind of shit can drive you crazy, you know? Uh, a lot of times I like to think about somebody like Pedro Pascal, you know, the actor, or even like Charles Bukowski, who didn't find any success until they were, you know, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever. But yeah, I'll give you a sort of a more in-depth answer. Let me address this email I got from Jude from Ireland. Jude's 22 years old. The rest of my band are like 19, so we're quite young, but we made this ourselves with a laptop, so I'd love to hear some feedback from you if you have the time. Tips or pointers. We're playing bars around Belfast at the moment, and I love it. It's a dream come true to even be in a band for me. Right on. We play hard rock, kind of grunge stuff, but if you want to listen to tracks Golden Fur and Heavy Outlet, they're more metal. No pressure. Just thought I'd send it your way for some constructive criticism. Anyway, I enjoy the videos, and you've made me want to delve more into death metal, and I've been enjoying it. Carcass are cool. Yeah, they are. Uh, yeah, and a few more links here. I listen to your stuff, man. It's good. Yeah, just looking for some feedback if you have the time, as I don't know many people with the same music taste as me living in rural Ireland. Okay, thanks. God bless. So yeah, man, kind of similar situations going on here. One in Mexico, one in Ireland. I get a lot of questions about uh, how to do it, like how to do a band and how to try to like take off or succeed or whatever. Dude, your music's good, man. Just I would say just keep doing it. The way that you do it is to do it. You know, the way that you figure out how to get better is to do it. There's not really like an instruction manual for this. There's not really like formal training that you can go through like there would be for like a trade or a career in like finance or something. Although I am hearing that like there's rock and roll like boot camps or something that you can go to where they teach you how to be like a rocker and tour and stuff like that. I don't know anything about that, and every situation is different. So I figured I would just talk a little bit about what I did. Our friend in Mexico talked about feeling like you're not doing enough and all that. And, you know, I'm 36. I've been writing songs since I was probably 13. I've been I've been playing instruments since I was 3. I've been playing guitar since I was 12 or 13. I've been writing songs, like actual songs, since I was about 13. I've been touring since I was about 18 or 19, unless you count, weekends, which I was doing in high school before I could even drive. Um, so I've been doing this a while, and I still am trying to figure out how to not feel like I'm not doing enough. And that is just something that you have to that you're gonna have to figure out how to do internally, you know? As long as you're doing everything you can externally, you're gonna have to like it's good to be driven, but it's not very much fun to constantly have that James Hetfield was 20 when they did Ride the Lightning. Like that will drive you insane, dude. That still kind of drives me insane thinking about it now. But I'm like, okay, Pedro Pascal was 50 or something before he like blew up, you know? So everybody's different. Everybody's different. What I did was get a guitar. Sounds like you have a guitar, so that's good, write songs, try to meet people that are into the same stuff. I've talked about it a little bit. I grew up in a really, not a really small town, but kind of like a smallish, conservative-ish town in Oklahoma where there weren't a lot of people into the stuff I was into. But you find them. You just find them. Like even if there's two people, which there were, I sort of clued in on the bass player of my first band in seventh grade English when he was like doing a book report on Metallica bio or something. And I was like, dude, what's up with that Metallica band? I feel like I've heard a little bit of them. And I remember he was like, just get the first album, kill them all. The rest of them suck. So I was like, all right, I think this guy's cool. And he played bass. Found my drummer basically the same way. I feel like me and my first drummer hated each other at first. We all played baseball. So we met through that. And then we kind of realized we didn't all like the same music. But, when you're in a small town and nobody's really into cool stuff, you kind of just make it work. The bass player was more into like Pixies and grungy sort of experimental punky stuff. And our drummer was kind of more into like Nirvana, and his older brother was super into like Pink Floyd and stuff like that. I was more into like Hendrix and early Metallica. Black Sabbath definitely was my favorite band, still is. But you just make it work. Like if your options are limited, you just figure out a way to make it work. And then what's kind of cool is your sound will be unique-ish because you're not all into exactly the same thing. We were all into the Misfits. So that first band that we started in 7th, 8th grade, I think we learned almost every Glenn Danzig era Misfits song by the time that band was over. Yeah, that thing sort of fizzled out because our bass player was getting way more interested in weirdo stuff, and we were kind of more metal. Me and our drummer were going more metal, and he was going more, bizarro stuff, which I like, but we weren't interested in playing at that time. So we started a different band, me and the drummer, new bass player, kind of more metal. Yeah, just figure out a way to do it. I worked at a call center when I was 16, buying cheap amps, trading for louder amps. We were fortunate enough to have a spot in our town that was like this whole hippie family running a venue. And I think they lived there illegally also. And they all looked very similar. I mean, obviously they were related, but it was like insane. They looked kind of like clones of each other or something, but they were super cool. They gave the youth in our town a spot to go and like try to figure out how to play in bands, watch bands, do all that. There were touring bands even coming through. There were, thrash metal bands coming from Tulsa trying to start shit and getting beat up and stuff. It was good times, man. I ended up going to Arkansas to go to college, which I was never really interested in. And I think I think it's a lot more obvious now that a lot of that has just sort of become a bit of a scam. But I ended up in Fayetteville, Arkansas, went to a house party and saw 3 bands. 2 of them to this day are like 2 of my favorite bands I've ever heard. This band Lethal Red and the band Dirt Mother that I've talked about on here, who are like currently mixing their first like honest to God album, which I'm sure I'll be talking about more. But yeah, just said what's up to as many people as I could, met some bandmates, started a band there, uh, did shitty recordings with our friends, saved up resources, went and did a record in Chicago. You know, you just build and build and build. Uh, it's a grind, man. Like I said, I can't speak to your situation or give like universal advice on how to do it. I'm just talking about what I did. But you have to like really be willing to like metaphorically die to the thing. You know, there was a time in Arkansas where I was playing in like 4 or 5 active bands, and I was working a full-time job as a caregiver for a developmentally disabled dude, uh, who was a really sweet guy. His parents were super sweet too. Fortunately, that was like a pretty low stress job. That was one of the better jobs I've ever had. The dude was obsessed with Alice Cooper, so like all we did was listen to Alice Cooper and stuff. Yeah, but I was working 1 full-time job doing that, working 2 part-time jobs, scrubbing hot pots in a really hectic. Have you seen The Bear? The show The Bear? It was like that. I was scrubbing pots and pans straight off the line. Yeah, and then at a certain point, you kind of have to realize, like, am I putting my energy into too many different things? Would it suit me a little better to maybe focus it in, try to make one thing work? You know, you just kind of got to feel out what works for you. But the most important thing is writing songs. Sounds like you're doing that. Recording songs. Sounds like you're doing that. Meeting people. I fucking hate the word networking. I hate it. It almost seems like an insult at times. I've had friends, bandmates who have been like, man, you're just really good at networking. I'm just not good at that. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I like music, and my best friends tend to be people like me who are kind of crazy and who have regularly thrown their life in the trash to like pursue playing in a band. So if you're down, people are gonna pick up on that. It's that whole like real recognize real thing, you know? But I just kept doing that, man. I left Arkansas. You know, sometimes you might have to try and figure out a way to relocate. I moved to Arizona, fucking around there, doing different stuff, fucking around in Malibu, doing different stuff. My life kind of imploded in Arkansas, and I was kind of like, let me just change everything. So I stopped playing music on stage, kind of. I was kind of like walking away from that quote unquote life or whatever, but I wasn't very happy. So when I started playing in bands again in Arizona is when things kind of started happening. But it's always just been like the most successful stuff that I've been involved with. It was literally just, I'm feeling some kind of way and I need to write a song about it. And the more you do that, the better you get at expressing yourself through a song. The more you study stuff that you like and feel stuff that you like, the more acquainted you get with constructing a song that's really good that might resonate with people who are like you. And that's it, man. The more you use that app you're using, the better you're going to get at that. You know, even GarageBand, like the first 1, 2, 3, I would say like the first 3 Spirit Adrift full lengths and first EP and stuff, I was using GarageBand to demo that stuff. Like, you don't need anything fancy. I know how to use Pro Tools. I did demo some stuff in Pro Tools early on, but I kind of realized like it was more trouble than it was worth. So you don't need like a fancy app. You don't need a fancy guitar. If you look at a lot of people's most beloved bands, they started from like nothing, like Sepultura. I'm sure, Max, when I talked to him, was talking about how shitty the gear was and stuff. It's really, at the end of the day, it's the songs that count. Uh, so yeah, in my case, it was just meeting cool people. It's a very, very small world. Entertainment, period, is like a very small world. The earth really is kind of small at the end of the day. You would be surprised how few degrees of separation you have between anybody. So something niche, like a small community of underground metal bands and stuff, it's a small world. So meeting people is crucial. Being nice to people, being able to hang and support each other and not being jealous and shit like that, that's crucial. Writing songs is crucial. Um, yeah, you got to keep grinding on it, man. I'm not familiar enough with the ecosystem in Mexico to give you specific advice there, but like my friend Pablo helps book Mexico Metal Fest. I think Satyricon is playing this year. So there's an ecosystem down there for sure. I know people love touring Mexico. People from the States love touring Mexico. I know there's a lot of passion for heavy music down there. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep writing songs. Same to you, Jude, in Ireland. The more songs you write, the better you get at it. I can't stress that enough. The more songs you record, just try to like, if you're recording, I've recorded in some pretty nice studios with some pros and stuff like that. But the early stuff in Oklahoma, we were, my friend Chad was a year older than us playing in a punk band. His band is kind of his band is how we learned how to do a band, just watching them. And he was the first guy in town to really start recording. And I remember making records like his setup would be in his bedroom or whatever. And then all these cables would be running down the hall into the bathroom, and you'd be in the bathroom like tracking guitar over the shitty drum tracks that you recorded in the garage. And what's crucial in those situations is to make sure that you're not too internally focused, that you're not too like absorbed into yourself, into your own worries. If you're going to do a good take, relax and like pay attention to the process, uh, and learn how to record, learn how to mix. Just try to learn as much as you can in whatever situation you're in. That's how like Tony Iommi became the producer and co-engineer of some of that later Black Sabbath stuff. He was in there paying attention. That's kind of like a classic cliche thing for bands and artists coming up, is in the early days, they need an engineer, they need a producer, but the guys that are really paying attention, Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul did it too. They produced and engineered the last Pantera record. And granted, the Terry Date remix sounds like way, way better, but still, that's empowering to know how to do all aspects of this, know how to play your instrument, play as many instruments as you can. The world needs drummers. You can teach yourself drums on a desk in middle school. Trust me, because I did. Yeah, learn as many instruments as you can, learn as many skills as you can. You learn by doing it. Like I said, there's no instruction manual or anything like that. So good luck, man. And hit me up along the way if you need help. And that's it, And as far as like labels and stuff like that go, I'm not sure how crucial a label even is these days. If you're going to work with a label, make sure it's like a modern type of deal, like a 50-50 split. Profound Lore does that. 20 Buck Spin does that. Closed Casket does that. I'm sure there's many others. The traditional record deal has no purpose in the modern world. You don't need it. And also, labels want to see that you are willing to work and that you are willing to sacrifice. No one's going to swoop in and help you. No one's going to swoop in and like give you your dream or whatever. Like that's just literally never going to happen. Nobody gives a fuck, dude. Nobody cares about it as much as you do. And that could be depressing or that could be empowering. You know, it's in your hands. So good luck. I hope that's not too melodramatic. Nick from Shock Withdrawal writes, "Hey Nate, first off, I've been enjoying this podcast so much. You basically are speaking out of my brain half the time, especially with lots of the bands you dig and some of the things you brought up on interviews. Super cool, hella sick, and great job. Thanks, Nick." Yeah, me and Nick met outside at Metal Injection Fest. I remember you, bro. Yeah, we talked about Pantera, Soylent Green, Acid Bath. I didn't realize that you played in Shock Withdrawal, and I'm familiar with the band. I don't know why I didn't put that together. And maybe you told me, but I did have COVID. Come to find out, so I think I was like half out of my mind. Okay, Nick. Anyway, I'm not one to try to force my music on anyone, but you were talking about grind bands you liked and named almost all my influences for my riffs for Shock Withdrawal. Brian Patton has always been one of my favorites, as well as Jesse and Mitch from Napalm Death. We put out this record this year. If you feel the mood, check it out. Feel like it's my tribute to my favorites. Yeah, that's all we can do, man. I hope you dig it. If not, I'll still be jamming the pod. So yeah, everybody go check out Shock Withdrawal. Dude, yeah, you guys are great. I'm a fan of the band, and I don't know why. Maybe you did tell me, and maybe I was like, hell yeah. But yeah, Shock Withdrawal rules. I left out a couple bands on the grindcore thing. I don't think I talked about Brutal Truth either. Uh, but yeah, everybody go check out Shock Withdrawal, and thanks for writing in, dude. I remember having a great time with you out on the patio, despite having caught COVID. Maybe on the way over there, I don't know. Brandon, hey Nate, I've been enjoying your podcast since the beginning, but just now reaching out. Uh, I really look forward to your podcast and enjoy hearing various opinions and points of views. I put your podcast in the same category as Laura Pleasance from Kylesa when she had the radio show in Savannah, Georgia a few years ago. I want to get her on here. There's like so many people I've been meaning to reach out to, and I just haven't had time, but she's definitely one of them. That Static Tensions record is one of my all-time favorite metal albums. Okay, yeah, so this reminds you of her thing and the legendary Fenriz's show, Fenriz Metal Pact. These have always been great sources for both new and classic underground music. The key ingredient you share with these is just being a fan of the music. Yeah, means a lot and truly comes across sincerely. I don't really have a question, but I'd be curious to hear what bands that Spirit Adrift would be interested in touring with in 2025. Metallica. That's about it. Rich in Florida. My name is Rich. I'm a huge fan of your music. I got to see you with Crowbar in Orlando at Will's Pub. Oh, dude, I remember reading this. Sorry, Rich, you wrote me this like a month ago, man. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. Remember, huge fan of your music. I got to see you with Crowbar in Orlando at Will's Pub, and again in Tampa with Midnight at the Orpheum. Attached some photos from our interactions. You may remember me. You said you were referring to us as the Stranger Things guys due to us talking about the comic book references made in the latest season. Yeah, you guys just reminded me. I was trying to describe you to my band because you guys were looking to get a picture and stuff. And I was like, look for the dudes with the Stranger Things vibe. You just had that air of like excitement and passion about cool stuff. I don't know, the 80s thing or something. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you how much your music means to me. I really don't think I can express it enough. Late 2018 and 19 was probably the worst, lowest point in my life. Experienced a lot of loss. I lost some of the most important people in my life. Yeah, me too, man. And as a result, I started to spiral into an abyss. Then by luck or maybe fate, I found Curse of Conception, and it was everything I needed, particularly to fly on broken wings. That album was one of the few that helped me see out of the darkness. It gave me hope. I had actually written a letter I wanted to give you at one of the shows explaining how your music helped me, but I didn't want to make the interaction weird or awkward. Nah. To anybody that ever wants to reach out to me, give me anything, don't ever hesitate. Don't ever hesitate. Like, it's super important to me to never take any of this for granted, that anyone gives the slightest shit about what I'm doing. So, my wife tells me I can be intimidating, but I don't mean to be. I remember we played with the Rhythm of Fear at a Florida show. Maybe not one of the ones you were at. But yeah, we played with that band Rhythm of Fear, and their singer was walking around before the show looking mad as fuck, like really intense and angry and intimidating. And I talked to him after they played. They kill it. They're a great band. And he was like, "Oh, thanks, man." Like super nice. Not at all like. So some people just have that look, I guess. So I'm sorry if whatever. Don't ever hesitate to approach me for a picture or to give me something or talk or whatever. Never hesitate. You will never be bothering me. Uh, I wouldn't be shit without people supporting what I'm doing. So okay. Anyway, after hearing Curse, I was immediately drawn in and had to find more Spirit Adrift. And since then, your music has become just as important to me as my other favorite artists, like Metallica, Thin Lizzy, Mastodon, Skinner, Stones, Zeppelin, Opeth, Seeger, Sabbath, Silo. Yeah, good shit. I hold your music in high esteem and you have a fan for life. Please never stop making music. Matters so much to people like me. Man, thanks, Rich. Uh, Rich, I emailed you back directly, but I appreciate that, man, a lot. The new Opeth song, speaking of which, is kind of weird. I don't know. They did a radio edit too. People are psyched because there's death metal vocals again, but is the song good? I don't know. Oh man, this was so Jean Marie from Montreal left me like a 9-minute voicemail. I'm not gonna lie, dude. I skimmed it. I've listened to most of it, but I was kind of skimming around. You said you're at the show at Turbo House in Montreal. That's one of my favorite shows I've ever played. Uh, I remember they were like people singing every word. That was one of the first times that had ever happened for Spirit Adrift. And man, I can't wait to come back. Yeah, one day. So the main questions that I heard were, what do you think of 72 Seasons, the new Metallica record? I actually like it. Especially that song Too Far Gone. It's got a riff that's kind of like No Remorse, which I've kind of written some riffs that are kind of like No Remorse. I really like that style of riffing. And that to me, James on Too Far Gone sounds the growliest and most pissed off that he has since the old days. I haven't actually listened to the whole record all the way through, I don't think, but I've heard a lot of it. I've seen some of the songs live. And it's good. Whatever. We're never going to get Master of Puppets again. And that's fine. Like Metallica's done enough for the world. And I got no problem with them pumping out records still. That's what they want to do. And that's what they live for. And I think it's one of their better records, honestly. I like it. I like that one. And I actually like Death Magnetic quite a bit too. And Hardwired had some moments as well. Anyway, what do you think of Zach Sabbath? Yeah, it's fine. It's cool. I think we've been submitted for a couple Zach Sabbath tours next year. Somebody was asking who we plan on touring with. That would be cool. Zach's obviously one of the all-time legendary great American guitarists, and Joey C's super cool. He's one of my favorite drummers. I got to spend like a little half day with him when he was with Scott Weiland, and it was rad, man. We just talked about like crossover blast and stuff like that. What do you think of Technical Ecstasy? That's Mike Fury, the drummer of Spirit Adrift's favorite Black Sabbath album, but I can't say that it's mine. It has its moments. I actually think Never Say Die has better moments overall. I know everybody thinks Never Say Die is the worst one, but Johnny Blade's one of their best songs. Title track's great. Junior's Eyes, great. Is Hard Road? Oh, it's a hard road. Is that on Never Say Die or Technical Ecstasy? I can't remember. But I think Never Say Die is better. I don't have them in front of me. Technical Ecstasy has all moving parts. One of the best geezer bass lines for sure. Dirty Women. Yeah, that's good. But I mean, that's about it for me. So honestly, I think it might be that and Forbidden might be my least favorite Sabbath records, but I don't know. I'd have to look at the track listing. All right, I'm going to keep cruising, man. 40 minutes left, or no, 40 minutes into it. Okay, Seb from France. Asking me about Gojira at the Olympics. I haven't listened to Gojira since the Whale album came out. I think I was in high school, and I liked it all right. Definitely respect them, but that was sick. What I saw at the Olympics was like really badass. They were on a castle, and they had to like whatever chain them to the side so they didn't fall off the window and plummet, 100 feet to their death or whatever. And there was like fake fire and smoke and people with their heads cut off and shit. It was really cool. I liked it. Okay, to finish a dummy question from Seb from France. I went to a Hatebreed show. It was awesome as always. Josta was playing with the crowd, launching circle pits and stuff. Some point when I was in the pit, I asked myself, I've been asked to be in a circle pit, a wall of death, or a wave of death 100 times, which I always did. But how many times did the guys who asked been themselves in a circle pit or wall of death? Probably not many. Yeah, kind of a philosophical question. The safe bet is to not ever do what anybody tells you and only do what you want. I don't know. If you're looking for a philosophical answer, then that's what I got. Okay. I got a couple emails about sobriety and stuff like that. I'll shout out Kenneth, man. Has a very similar story to myself. And yeah, he's talking about the band Molten. They're going out with Laceration. Check out that tour. And Kenneth plays in a band called Death Provider, and they're finishing up 7-inch. So yeah, I'll shoot you my P.O. box so you can send me that. Thank you, Kenneth, and congrats on the sobriety, man. Yeah, everybody go see Molten and Laceration if you're on the West Coast. Two great bands. I keep meaning to talk more about the Molten record that came out this year. Like I said, I ran into their singer at Hell's Heroes and jammed it on the way home, and it was sick. Some of it reminded me of Testament New Order. They had some instrumentals in there and stuff. Really good stuff. Marcus is asking, Big Riff Energy merch. I can't be the first person to ask about shirts. I think you are actually the first person. If you print them, we will buy. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not totally opposed to it. I guess you guys can comment or email me if you would buy a Big Riff Energy shirt. If I were to do it, I would probably just put Big Riff Energy on it and then make it look like a metal band shirt. Like, I don't think I would do the actual logo. Kind of like what Donable Guitars does. Let me know if you guys are interested in that. BigRiffEnergy@gmail.com. Cruising through, man. Oh boy. I'm going to save this next one for the next episode, I think. Another sobriety thing from Ricardo. So Ricardo, I'll hit you up on the next episode. I've also received like many emails about a band called Neon Nightmare, and it's getting compared to Typo Negative. I'll check that out between now and the next episode. But I do have to say, I did a few, I think 2 or 3 episodes on Typo a while back, and I was kind of bringing up the point that like a lot of stuff's getting compared to Typo, and I listened to it, and it's just like a huge disappointment. And I don't want to insult anyone that's a fan of this show or whatever, but yeah, when I brought that up on the Typo episodes, a lot of the stuff you guys sent me, like some of it was good. Woods of Ypres or whatever. Is that how you say it? Have I finally figured Woods of Y-Press? That band's great, but they don't sound anything like Typo Negative. Like the guy every once in a while would do like a low bass vocal, but I don't know. They were like on the better end of the spectrum, but then on the other end of the spectrum, some of the shit you guys sent me was like, I can't say them by name, but there's a band that was like Elvis impersonator version of Typo Negative. Like it was missing the point. It was literally felt like not a good Elvis impersonator, like a guy that's not doing good in his life, not just musically, but like yeah, it had like a slimy, like Elvis impersonator vibe to it. And I don't know, people compare like some of the Paradise Lost stuff to Typo as well. And I don't want to like come across from a position of ego or superiority or anything like that. I'm a musician. That's what I am. I've been playing music since I was 3 years old. And that's all I've ever really stayed dedicated to in my life. So I experience music a certain way, and I can't help but, I feel it and I enjoy it, but I can't help but also kind of analyze it. And there's so much more to Typo Negative than just doing like a sexy low voice, bass voice thing. And, you know, the songwriting and the arranging is so unique. Like there's a certain formula. I would say that Pete had maybe like 4 to 8 songwriting formulas. And I went into it on those previous episodes. It comes from the riffs of Sabbath, the arrangements of the Beatles, um, sort of the presentation of something like Dark Side of the Moon. There's all these different influences coming in, and it created something like really unique musically. Now, obviously, chorus on the guitar is a crucial thing. Chorus on the bass, like deep bassy vocals and sad boy shit, like that's the obvious stuff. But the arrangements and the songwriting, the chord progressions, the emotional journeys that you're going on even through the course of like one song, I haven't heard anybody do that. So I'll check this shit out, but uh I've been nothing but disappointed by the Typo Negative recommendations. And people underestimate Josh Silver too, man. Like you even listen to something from the last album like September Sun or something, and it just between the vocals, this is arranging. This is why Josh is a co-producer, and I would consider him to be like a co-arranger almost. Like this is what arranging is. There's space for the vocals when he's talking about like October Rust, Rotted Flatbush Porch or something like that. There's nothing going on while he's singing, but in between those vocals, the stuff that Josh Silver is doing is like the highlight, but it's so subtle. I was just listening to that song. I don't know, it came to mind. But Josh is a secret weapon. That's what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of factors that go into the magic of Typo Negative beyond super bass vocals and chorus on the guitar and that sort of thing. There's a lot more subtle genius and unique writing and arranging at play. And yeah, I don't know. Half these bands that are getting recommended are doing like monotone Ian Curtis impersonation, everyone singing like right in this range. And it's just, yeah, I mean, every like metal or hardcore adjacent goth band sings right in this range, and they all sound super boring and monotone and like they want to die and nobody cares. So I don't know. Please don't send me any more of that lame ass shit. Okay. Cool shit, on the other hand. Replicant. This album came out this year. It is slamming. I hate slam. I hate slam. God, I hate it. And it gets slam adjacent, but I love this record. I love it. Why do I hate slam? Every like slammed out quote death metal band that's not actually a death metal band these days is basically doing a watered down version of a thing that was created by people such as the Cemetery. What's a euphemism for the Cemetery? The Cemetery illegal, unwanted, romantic, sexual advancer. We'll call him that. But it's just, God, we just saw the new Alien movie, and I'm not going to spoil it. It was okay, but it was good. But to me, it felt like a greatest hits of stuff that's already happened. And I love Fede Alvarez, but when you're when you're comparing something to Ridley Scott, who's one of the greatest at the art form of all time, and you're comparing something to Jim Cameron, who's one of the greatest at the art form of all time, Fede, who is one of the current greats, I would say, it just isn't the same ballpark, right? And I feel a lot of that going on with death metal, especially the slammed out Jinko bleached hair variety. It's like the cemetery problematic aroused behavioralist already did this shit a long ass time ago, and he got canceled or something, or they like keep trying to cancel him. I've been about half insane enough to like reach out to this fool and get him on here and see what kind of shit that stirs up. But yeah, it's just weird. This is a weird aside that I've been thinking about when the thought of slam comes up. And it has nothing to do with Replicant. This is a total aside. This is more like technical East Coast death metal, real ass death metal, Suffocation. You know, if you like Dying Fetus, you probably like. I don't care that much for Dying Fetus personally, but if you do, you'll really dig this. There's moments like my favorite parts are complete technical psychotic breakdowns where you feel like you're trapped in the matrix and somebody's like really trying to pull your plug out, you know, psychedelic, like glitched out, futuristic, just chaos, you know? So yeah, it's great. I don't want to go on too long about it. I've already talked for a long time, but check out Replicant, Infinite Mortality. If you like modern, technical, brutal East Coast death metal, this is like some of the best I've ever heard, you know? Not my usual wheelhouse, to be honest, but they're so good at it that I can't help but love it. And again, the vocals, huge part. This guy doesn't sound like he's standing in a vocal booth trying to give a good performance. He sounds like he's been injected with some kind of like rage virus or something. Like he sounds dangerous, you know, and truly like not well in the best kind of way. So check out Replicant from New Jersey, Infinite Mortality. If anybody from Replicant hears this and wants to come on, I'd love to talk to you about this record. Got a lot of questions, man. There need to be answers for some of this shit that's going on. Yeah, to any publicist representing bands, keep sending me records. And if I like them, I'll talk about them. And if I don't, I won't. A lot of people have been asking about the J-Dog situation. I keep like planning to make fun of this dude and like read off all the side effects of steroid abuse and clearly how he's being affected by every single one of those side effects and this and that. But the basic thing that happened is that there was a miscalculation, I think, on his part that I gave a shit about talking to him. And there's been a few more people since then that have made a basic miscalculation that I care about who I talk to on here. I don't care at all. If you're not James Hetfield or Tony Iommi, or maybe like Alex Pereira from the UFC, I don't, and he doesn't even fucking speak English, so we would need a translator and shit. But like, don't flatter yourself. I don't give a fuck about you. I don't care. The fact that like a guy like J-Dog tried to big dog me is like so funny. If J-Dog were to come on this podcast, he'd be the biggest fucking loser I ever had on here, you know? So yeah, maybe I'll do like a legitimate takedown because a lot of people don't like that guy. So it'd be fun. But yeah, that's the basic thing. He just wasted my fucking time. Tried to like big dog me, and bro, look at yourself in the mirror. Anyway, maybe next time. And I'll see you next week if I can get around to it. Cheers.